Welcome back. It is 7:09 in the morning. News Radio 830 KHVH. As you know, 7 o'clock hour Mondays. It is the SHOPO hour, and delighted that the fellas are in studio with us today. And Brother Mark Criccio, he has some time off. He's fighting extradition from Pennsylvania. It's a startling story.
Something with the Amish, right, Rick?
I believe that was it. It's a violation of the sovereign state. But we have Brother Steve KEOGH in studio. Brother, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Rick. Always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners.
It's going to be a good day, yes? Brother Nick, how are you?
I'm back. Thank you. Thanks for having me again today.
You are back. I'm glad you are. Glad you're with us. Bobby has some time off. Mark is off as well. Brother Steve, introduce brother with us here today.
Absolutely happy to do that, Rick. We have with us Lieutenant Nick KRAU from Maui Police Department. Nick is our SHOPO leader for the county of Maui, and we're happy that he's with us today. And because we have two Nicks, Rick, we refer to them in our meetings. We have Honolulu Nick, and then we have Maui Nick. Okay. So that might be the best way to handle it for the show today. Maui Nick and Honolulu Nick.
Gotcha. Maui Nick, aloha.
Aloha, thank you.
And would you mind share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump on in.
Myself? Not a whole lot to tell. Just I'm currently the commander of the east side of Maui, so that's like Hana area, Kipahulu, and Kaupo, which is a pretty rural area of Maui, but it's great to be out there. The best people in the world are out in that district.
There we go. There we go. Born and raised Maui?
Yes, sir. Born and raised Maui, yeah.
Yeah.
5 beautiful kids.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Whereabouts Maui side?
I live in Waikapu.
Waikapu.
But then I work in Hana, so it's about a 2-hour commute.
Wow.
So I usually go out there and spend the week. So I go out on Monday and spend the week out there and return home on Friday.
Oh, my goodness.
On the weekends.
That is some serious dedication. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is. But, the family understands and they're supportive, and that's, couldn't ask for anything more than that.
Right. I have an idea. We could take our rail system and bring it over so you can get to Hana on the little...
I'm sure they could do it under budget within the next 5 years.
Yeah. Now, that's a profound statement, and we're going to run with it. But anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, I want to jump on in, if you don't mind. Civil Beat article in regard to the 313. There is in that report ensconced concerns, using the air quotes, based on some policies in the past under Chief Boise, and that's being invoked to say, listen, you got we got some concerns, even a mainland authoritative voice commenting as well about 313. So I'd love to get your take. Brother Steve, start with you.
Sure. Actually, Rick, if with your permission, Honolulu Nick actually commented on that piece directly.
Yes.
And if we don't mind, I'll defer to him, and then I'll jump in after if you're good with that.
Oh, absolutely. Brother Nick, thoughts about this story?
Well, I did interview for that story.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is, I wasn't really privy to any of the studies that were used in that article when it came out ahead of time. I had no forewarning about any of that, so it's difficult for me to comment on it without actually being able to speak face to face with the people, the professional in New York or what have you, or any other study. But we are moving forward with this schedule. It is going to happen. We have a draft happening the day after tomorrow, and we'll have a personal movement on August 20th. So this is the direction we're taking. And again, I'll say it one more time with regards to any concerns about fatigue and whatnot. When we did our survey to gather information, situational information, to make a decision on how to proceed, one of the questions we asked both the people who were working a 5.9 and the people working a 312 is, how do you feel your fatigue level was? And we got almost exactly the same answer either way.
Yeah. During the prototypical in 2 districts leading up, was there any concerns that were expressed or actually came to pass?
That was obviously a concern for those of us who had never worked at 312 before. We were interested in seeing how the day played out for people who were involved in the 312 pilot program. There were some concerns here or there, but again, at the end of the day, we were looking at the time off and the quality of life for the time off in comparison to the time on. And so that's really the key factor, I think, in moving forward with regards to how much time you actually work during the course of the day. Also, with the overlap time built in this modified patrol schedule, I'll just say it one more time. We've never had anything like that before. We've never had pre-shift, post-shift where you can come in. You have all of this extra time to catch up on what you did during the course of the day. You have extra time to meet with your sector, your watch, your coworkers. If there's spare time, you can actually hit the gym on the clock. These are things that our officers have never had. So we believe this is going to work, and this is the direction we're taking.
Okay, Steve?
Rick and I, excuse me, the main takeaway here with this schedule is the people are asking, basically seeing the forest through the trees is, are the officers going to be able to perform at an optimal level? Are they going to be able to provide service to the community? Are they going to be able to do it in a safe and effective manner? And the answer to all those is we feel that's going to happen. I think it's important for the community to realize that there are other first responders in Honolulu County that are currently working this schedule. I think it's important that your listeners realize that our brothers and sisters that ride the ambulance rigs for EMS, they currently do a 12-hour shift. And I think we would be able to say that they have quite a bit of responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. We would also say that our brothers and sisters that are keeping people safe in the water, the lifeguards for Honolulu County, are currently on a 12-hour shift. So this is something that first responders in different capacities utilize throughout the county. We're optimistic that this is going to provide the best balance not only for keeping the community safe and effectively providing law enforcement to the community as people deserve, but it's also going to be beneficial to our membership. Now, no filter here. It's going to be a long day. There's no doubt about that. But again, as Nick alluded to, what's exciting for us is it's not going to be 13 hours completely in the patrol car. This is going to be just for our patrol members that are in patrol divisions. But there's going to be a 1.5 hour overlap where when recall is made, the officers that have worked that day are going to be able to come back to the station, not chase the radio and do calls for service, and have personal time, whether that's for personal growth and training with supervisors and handling that, or personal fitness. They're going to be able to exercise or train, whatever the watch commander and the sergeants kind of want to have for that day or how they want to run it, they're going to be able to do that. So why, again, we acknowledge that it is a longer day. I'm sure when it comes to studies, you can find studies that are always going to be for and against, and you can always find studies that have pros and cons. At the end of the day, we feel as a labor union representing cops, not only throughout the state, but specifically here in Honolulu, that we did our due diligence. We're not going to put our members or the community in harm's way, and we're really excited to roll this program out and get it started.
So, Brother Maui Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I thought it was unfortunate the article didn't mention much about the quality of life of the officers and, more family time for them and more time for them to decompress and unwind from the stresses of the job. So on Maui, we also do that same schedule, the 312 schedule. And during COVID, actually, interesting enough, during COVID, I worked in a Wailuku Patrol District at the time, and all of our officers assigned to that district worked 5 13-hour days during a 2-year period. And no one seemed concerned about it then, but, there was no incidents that occurred, that, because of officer fatigue that I was ever made aware of. So, it's been done, 5 13-hour days during COVID. And, like I said, no one had a problem with it then. Now it's a concern.
One of the things that, and I'll just throw it out there as people may be listening, 8-hour shift. You're on the streets, you're in the game, in the community, on patrol, on call, whatever the case may be, 8-hour shift. Yeah, there's going to be some downtime, you got some admin work, etc., but the presence is on. When you were describing that of that 12-hour day, There could be time for but there would be time for fitness. You may be able to get caught up on some things of the previous day, that day, or what have you. The image that some are going to take away is that the physical presence of police officers in the community, on the job, patrolling and actively engaged will be diminished under this schedule because it's 312, and then of that 12, there's extra time that can be utilized for not off the clock, but maybe not in direct patrol, etc. Just kind of surmising, some folks might be thinking that. Is there any accuracy in that? Or
I don't necessarily think that's accurate.
Okay.
And the reason why is because, this overlap time is built in so that, when essentially when one shift is coming off, the next shift is going on. So the build-in time is at the back end of the shift. So you will still have a presence of police officers out in the field when the first shift officers are being recalled and have that time to themselves to be able to catch up or do whatever it is that they feel is necessary. And I think it's really important to emphasize that as far as individual training time goes, or one-on-ones, or even just decompression or what have you, that extra amount of time at the end of the shift is invaluable. It's something that we've never seen before in this department. And it's something that I don't want to say we've gotten away from, but being a beat cop for so many years, I can tell you that when you get to work, you just want to hit it. You know what I mean? And that's really the mission of the day. Show up. Is everybody accounted for? Okay. Does everybody have what they need? Okay, let's go. Let's do this. All right. And then you hit the road. And that extra time for, hey, let's huddle up. Let's talk about that case that happened yesterday. Let's talk about this change in policy and procedure and so on and so forth. That's where all of this extra time comes from. And again, if you're caught up, hey, let's all go take a run. Let's do something together as a group, physically for ourselves, to better ourselves, decompress, or what have you, so that we're just in a better place at the end of today.
Yeah, love that. Yes.
And in Hawaii, so unique, unlike the mainland. We all of us, we work in the community that we serve, and people care about their community, and we're not gonna agree to having less officers on the road. And also, it would be for us to agree to have less officers on the road. That would be such a huge safety issue for the officers out there on the road. You got less backup, less officers doing the job, more officers would. We would never agree to that, for multiple reasons. In Maui, we're 25% short staffed now. So, and it's our 312 schedule is not putting any less officers on the road at all.
Gotcha. I remember when we first started the conversation, this is ages ago, without point of reference, to bring up what happened under Chief KRAU, and God bless him. But this is years and years ago. We're talking about present day. And you had mentioned that because of this tempo, there would actually be more coverage, and that the general public would have even more access to service, despite the challenges that we're having with staffing today. Brother Steve, before we take a break.
Yeah, I'll jump in. That was one of the appealing factors. If we're going from 3 shifts to 2, so just in theory, then you're going to have more personnel on each shift. Now, keep in mind, you have police leadership in every district that has the final say to where they want to put the resources. Okay, but in theory, if the alternate work schedule, specifically in Honolulu, is rolled out, there should be, without question, just mathematically, more officers filling the beats for those 2 shifts. And the watch commander or the lieutenant, and then also the executive leadership, the captain and the major, we're hoping that they are going to utilize this schedule to make patrol be more robust with staffing. The other thing I want to add, Rick, is we've actually gotten a lot of support from our brothers and sisters in the medical community. Those nurses and doctors that work at Straub and Queens and some of the local facilities, they're currently working these types of shift, and it benefits them. Yeah. So I think it's just a change for the community, but we feel it's going to be a change for the better, and we're still going to be able to provide the high level of service, but also taking care of the membership a little bit.
So, final point question is, if an officer expresses, hey, listen, I'm halfway through, but I'm feeling a little off, I'm feeling a little tired is there recourse? Is there an option for that officer to take the time off because they're confronting whatever it might be that's challenging to their schedule?
So I'll jump in on that. If an officer or a corporal came to me as a sergeant and said, "Hey, Sarge, you know what? I'm having one of those kind of days. I just need some time," then absolutely, it's going to be incumbent upon to the police supervisor then to know their people and to make sure that that individual is safe and taken care of. So in a situation like that, Rick, if that came up, obviously that would be addressed. And that's about the relationship that a supervisor is going to have with his people. And of course, if an officer was that transparent, we're going to take care of that and handle it appropriately.
Brother Maui, Nick, do you think this may help with recruitment on the Valley Isle?
I hope so. I think that there's a lot of issues we have with with recruitment, and I hope so. Having a more attractive schedule, with that more family time. I mean, it works for the firefighters, so hopefully it works for us too.
And Honolulu, Nick, recruitment for Oahu.
I think this is definitely an attractive thing for people who are going to come into the profession for the first time. It goes without saying that this is a difficult profession to be in because it is stigmatized in so many ways, and there are so many difficulties that you have to encounter while you're out there. So many things you're exposed to that nobody else ever has to deal with or see. That's definitely part of the job that we do. We sacrifice ourselves in that respect so that the rest of the world can stay safe and essentially unaware of just how bad things can get. Right. So in that respect, trying to find the best balance possible between how much time you spend at work and then how much off-duty time you have is really an optimum thing. And it's that off-duty quality of life kind of thing that we're really, really looking at more than anything else here.
Yeah. Final actual starting date when the schedule kicks in is when, Steve or Nick?
I'm sorry, August 20th.
Please, August 20th.
Yeah.
All right, there we have it. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much. We're it's already 7:26 in the morning. My goodness. We'll get caught up and get back to it. It is the SHOPO Hour. Once again, it is the SHOPO Hour. We need this to be the SHOPO 4 hours because just with our first topic of conversation, we're at the bottom of this hour, 7:28. So using our time wisely, I want to go to, if you don't mind, and then we can start and then carry over to the next segment. And that is reports that the traffic division has really upped the game in regard to enforcement and presence and arrests, etc. They cite the numbers that were cited is that there were, as of July 1st, 24 excessive speeders. Can we define an excessive speeder? What does that entail?
Sure. So excessive speeding, essentially, depending on certain variables, excessive speeding typically is something where you are going in excess of 80 miles an hour over the speed limit, depending on certain situations. However, it's the traffic division is definitely out there. We're definitely out there in force. Obviously, there have been some high-profile cases lately where there have been accidents. Unfortunately, there have been racing on the freeway, and so it's been stepped up. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest to the public, just be careful what you're doing out there.
As of 7/1, 74 drunk driving arrests. That's just from July 1st. And could you help me again in another relation that between Memorial Day and Labor Day? That is termed to be the 100 deadliest days. Brother Nick Maui, would you mind sharing a bit?
Sure, yeah. I actually spent 14 years of my career in the traffic division on Maui. So, Hawaii has a lot of traffic fatalities and a lot of alcohol and drug-related traffic fatalities. And, it's one of the highest in the country. It's that bad. And it's, the thing is, it's not just, everybody, puts it on the police, but it's actually a community problem that, that the community needs to support, stricter laws and, stricter penalties for, these impaired drivers and
right.
These people driving impaired and if the society would take it more seriously, then, we could see a reduction of it. But it's just, it's so socially acceptable to drink and then drive. And it's not illegal to drink and drive. or drink and then drive. You just can't drive impaired. But you know, you can have your drink and then drive, and that's where a lot of people get in trouble, is knowing where to stop.
Yeah. I just have a zero policy. I mean, because I know I'm going to go out, and I know why in the world would I even? There's so many options out there, and I don't understand why people take that risk. I understand that it's a big presence, but goodness gracious, the results.
There's no, even like with Uber, you don't even have to know where you are, and you can use that Uber app or Lyft app, and they'll come pick you up and take you home. Yeah, so there's no excuse, like you said.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And you know, Rick, for your listeners, it's kind of like everyone has their certain jobs. The officers in the traffic division are police officers, but they are highly trained when it comes to drug and alcohol awareness and speed enforcement, and they're really specialists in that area. And just getting back to speeding, when it comes to excessive speeding, if you're doing 65 and a 30, that's excessive speeding.
30 miles an hour.
So if you are doing 30 miles an hour, at least in Honolulu County, you're doing 30 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, that's considered excessive speeding. If you're going 81 plus, that's considered excessive speeding. Yeah, and Nick's in the traffic division. Maui Nick's was in the traffic division. Honolulu Nick is currently in the traffic division, and I was in the traffic division riding the motorcycle. So when you talk about traffic, we know it, we've lived it, we've done it. And hats off to officers doing enforcement, because I think it's safe to say that I don't know how many arrests for driving impaired that you read off, but we could argue that those arrests saved a life for sure. Whether it's the life of someone in the community or the life of the person that was intoxicated behind the wheel. Now, obviously, they'll get their day in court, and that'll all play out. But at least a potential fatality was taken off the road that night.
To reiterate, since July 1st, 74, just since July 1st, and I believe these numbers may be compressed because the report that I referred to was yesterday's report, which means fewer days.
I loved what Maui Nick said as far as the community. It's really, and you hit it on the head, Rick, when a bunch of people go out, friends go out, and they want to celebrate something, go ahead and have some adult beverages, no problem. But it really is incumbent then upon that group to say, hey, you've had a few, don't drive. Take a ride share. Let's call somebody. Call your wife, call your husband, your significant other. Call somebody, but just don't get behind the wheel, because 74 from July
1st, yeah.
Just in Honolulu County. Mm-hmm. That's quite a bit.
Yeah. Wow. It is 7:33 in the morning. We can expand upon this, but more topicality ahead. This is the SHOPO Hour here on News Radio, 830 KHVH. Brothers Nicks. Can I say that? Brother Nicks. Nicks the brothers. I'm going to pluralize this somehow.
The brothers Nick. The brothers Nick.
It's your show. You can say what you want.
Oh, and Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out here too. What the hell?
Call him Nick too.
Yeah.
We'll return in a moment. Sorry, we're just talking through the break here. Hope you don't mind, because it is the SHOPO Hour. And once again, with Brothers Nick from Honolulu, Maui, and Brother Steve, covering a lot of ground. We'll turn it back over to Traffic Division just to wrap things up, to ensure that we thoroughly had a chance to share not only the efforts underway by our men and women that are serving, but also the cautionary tale. Listen, if you're going to do, it's not a question of if, it's when. You're going to get, there's going to be a consequence, unfortunately, one way or the other. So, message to the general public before we leave this issue about impaired driving, speeding, recklessness, racing, anything you'd like to cover.
Sure. I would just say, you know what? Patience is part of the game when it comes to driving your car. It's as simple as that. So is foresight. So there is no excuse for being inebriated and getting behind the wheel of the car. Doing drugs and driving a car is also illegal. Okay, you can unfortunately be under the influence of prescription medication where you should not be driving, and that also is illegal if you get into certain situations as well. So there really aren't any blank checks as far as that kind of thing goes. And as well, driving is a responsibility. It takes focus. It takes attention. You should not be texting. You should not be looking at FaceTime. You should not be answering the phone with it in your hand to your head, or even on speaker, holding it with one hand on the wheel and
Right.
the other one, holding the cell phone 2 feet away from your face or something like that. I mean, all of that is not acceptable. It detracts from your ability to actually pay attention. Your eyes work a certain way. Your brain interprets information from your eyes a certain way. Your body was never, ever made to handle that type of sensory input. You need to actually concentrate on what you're doing when you're driving a car.
Yeah, Rick, just a pro tip. If you're on the road at like 10, 11 o'clock at night and you see someone driving with their headlights off, there's like a 70% chance that that person is impaired and bust up, so stay away from that individual. The other takeaway, which would really help us, is if you can safely get a plate number of somebody that seems to be driving erratically, that would help us tremendously to try to perform a stop on that person. But again, takeaway, if you see someone driving with their headlights off and it's nighttime, there's a high probability that they could be impaired.
Brother Maui Nick, coming back from Vegas, Los Angeles, somewhere I got back from, marijuana smoking is prevalent. I mean, anywhere, anytime, any place, it seems anymore. Can you help us understand how we're able to discern if someone is under the influence of an illegal drug such as marijuana or even more?
Yeah, there's actually a 12-step detailed process called the Drug Recognition Expert Program that officers from Honolulu throughout the state are trained to utilize this 12-step evaluation process to form an opinion on to what substance that person might be under the influence of, and of course it'd be confirmed and backed up with blood tests. On Maui we get warrants for, so if someone we suspect of being impaired driving, they refuse to submit to any testing, like drugs and stuff like that, we can get an electronic warrant, which we electronically transmit to the judge 24/7, and get that back, and it gives us the that ability to take a blood sample from that individual and test to determine what they're under the influence of.
Thank you for that few minutes for a traffic update. But might be a good time, if we don't mind. The assumption is that all county departments are the same. It's Hawaii Police Department, same here, Big Island, Maui, etc. That's not necessarily true. Can you help us understand the delineation between counties? And with Brother Maui Nick, maybe you can help us understand how the administrations are either different or the same or a combination.
Okay. I think Maui's kind of unique because we have 3 islands in our district, so we actually have the separate islands that we have to provide police service to as well. And I guess the easiest way to describe it is like HPD is like our big brother. So we do a lot of what HPD does. So if HPD does something, HPD has a policy. A lot of times we will kind of use that as a guide for us. So very similar in many ways, but different. Different communities we serve. We don't have a big military community. We don't have military there on Maui, and just different jobs. Different jobs and different backgrounds of people and stuff there. So it's different in that sense. In the people we serve, but very similar in the way the departments are run.
Expand, Brother Steve, Nick.
Sure. I was just thinking, Rick, that when it comes to, you have 4 different county police departments. So that's going to be 4 different police commissions boards. That's going to be 4 different police chiefs. That's going to be 4 different complete administrations. For those that have military background, I know that through the different counties, we have different ranks. In Honolulu, we have an officer, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major. Going back to Maui, help me out here, Maui Nick, but you don't have a corporal rank and you also don't have the rank of major. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So there's different rank structures within the different departments. It also is interesting to know, just for put it out there, that the uniforms are different. The colors, obviously, generally police officers wear some type of blue uniform or bluish in color. Sheriff's departments are usually more of a green or brown. So the county PDs, we wear a version of a blue uniform, but the insignias, the patches, the design of the badge, those are all completely separate and different and unique to the county PDs. Where SHOPO comes into play, the police union, is with the collective bargaining agreement. That covers the 4 different county police department and the compensation compensation plans, and Nick will go into a couple more things, but those are just some top of mind things that I was thinking of sitting here.
Brother Nick?
So as far as actual enforcement duties go, you'll find that between the 4 counties, often we have the same spirit and roadmaps as far as policy and procedure goes. We don't have exactly the same policy or procedures through all 4 counties, but we do have the same, essentially, foundation between each one of them. So you see a lot of the same theory, the same language, the same technical application, but it's not exactly the same policy, cookie cutter for all 4 counties. We obviously enforce all Hawaii revised statutes, but when it comes to county ordinances, you'll find differences between all 4 counties as well. So out here we call them ROH, revised ordinances of Honolulu, and Maui you would call them
Ours are Maui County Ordinance.
right, so MCO or something along those lines. That's when you get down to more specifics of, okay, we have state, but we also have city. So how does the city or the little community operate as far as its little ordinances or variances go? Obviously, physically, we may look different from county to county as far as the uniforms, the vehicles, the badging, the nomenclature, and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we do receive a lot of the same type of standardized and systematic training that any other law enforcement officer anywhere else in the county would receive. For example, Maui Nick had mentioned the drug recognition expert program. Our traffic division just graduated a whole bunch of new DREs a couple of months ago, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, our DREs are going to be out there on the road as well from traffic division enforcing. So again, I'll just say it one more time. Do not do drugs and drive a car, and do not drive impaired as the result of drug intoxication. But our DREs, Maui DREs, Hawaii County DREs, Kauai County DREs, they all receive exactly the same NHTSA training that any other DRE would receive on the mainland as well. So you get same, but then small kind different.
The only difference, and Maui Nick shared with me earlier, that the Maui PD is the more handsome of the 2 departments between Maui and Honolulu.
Nick and I will have a talk about that off air afterwards.
But it is a proven fact, though. Thank you.
There it is.
But the training, too. We train with HPD a lot.
Yeah.
So I think, so we do, so that was something else, too, that we do together. So a lot of training together.
We'll take a very short break. It's going to be the final one. Time is flying by, but let's use it wisely. We'll be back in just a couple of moments. The SHOPO Hour continues. And we're back. We have some time left remaining. The SHOPO Hour, the Jillian Anderson Report, will be coming up at 8:10 this morning. Looking forward to Jillian's report indeed. 7:52 in the morning. We as the public are really just treated to news stories. Whatever news organizations cover, that's how we're made apprised. You made a brief comment earlier about what you really have to contend with as officers, a lot of which we as the public will never know. And I'll give a case of a story, and maybe you can share an expansion on this. The word machete is coming up quite a bit. And there was another incident regarding a road rage with a brandishing of a machete again. And in Kalihi side, there are reports, and it just seems, I'm using that just as an example of what the general public is viewing and seeing now with a shooting across from Kamehameha Shopping Center just the other night. And people are expressing, my goodness, what's going on? There's invocation of it's like we're becoming the mainland. That's one thing that I hear. Love to get your take. The reality of what you need to confront virtually every day and night. And what's the real temperature of our respective communities in regard to crime?
Go ahead. Sure, Rick. So let's talk about, if we can, let's talk about the shooting in Kalihi. Mm-hmm. The public can rest assured that the officers in the Kalihi district, the beat cops, the plainclothes crime reduction units, the individuals that are causing problems, they're either going to be known or they're already known. So police intelligence is there. Let's remember, okay, this is Hawaii, but you do have, there are gangs, okay, and there are gangs in certain neighborhoods in Kalihi. That's common knowledge in the different housing projects. So it's not like these are just kids that are participating in sports, and a 20-year-old gets shot and or 15-year-old gets shot.
15, yeah.
These are young people that are choosing to participate in a lifestyle that the majority of the public is opposed to and against. And we've talked about police trying to make an impression on those youths. But I'll tell you something. There comes a time where if younger people have made a decision of what they want to do and they start doing these kind of activities, it just goes to then there has to be a consequence for the action. Okay. Mm-hmm. And again, when you talk about police work, for the cops that respond to those calls, this is where our profession is different. It goes from 0 to 100 in one dispatch call. Shots fired, gunshot this. It goes from guys and girls sitting back, officers maybe completing reports, talking about what they want to do, to suddenly a call comes in from dispatch, shots fired, reports of a teenage boy on the ground bleeding from his chest. That's how things happen. And that's where our profession is different, that we're regular people, but we need to have, as officers, the ability to think and perform under pressure and not let that fight or flight kick in. As far as the crime, Rick, the departments in the different counties were aware of it. But again, we've said this before, it's a partnership. It's a partnership between the community. It's a partnership between the police departments, the prosecutor's office, and the judges. There has to be consequences for this type of behavior if we don't want to become the mainland. There has to be consequences for bad behavior. Criminal, let me rephrase this.
Yeah.
Criminal bad behavior.
Understand. We have just a moment. I'd love to get your take briefly on the same question, Maui Nick.
Yeah, I know the first question I ask is why are people carrying around machetes? And it's because they can. Yeah, just because someone's carrying around a machete doesn't make them a criminal. There's no law against that. But it's when they use it for some type of criminal activity. They shouldn't be. We'll arrest them, but then you see them back on the street the next day because the courts released them. Mm-hmm. That shouldn't be happening. Yeah, if you break the law, threaten somebody with a machete or do something inappropriate with a machete, you should go to jail and stay there until your term is over.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, gentlemen. I want to, in the last few moments remaining, acknowledge and share about the passing of Chief Lee Donahue. And with our time remaining, Brother Honolulu Nick, if you wouldn't mind, would you please share your thoughts that you expressed to Honolulu membership and beyond about the passing of Chief Lee?
Sure. Thank you very much. So I just want to take an opportunity to say, to the family and friends of former Chief Lee Donahue, the Honolulu chapter expresses its condolences and its sincere regret on his passing. This is a gentleman who was a fine police officer, a very, very long amount of time spent as a sworn officer for this department, a champion for its officers, a man who was a very admirable police leader, a very, very well-respected chief of police and a fellow police officer as well, to all the men and women who served with him and for him, a person who, after he retired from the department, kept on as a community leader and a champion for police officers through foundations as well, and assisting us in getting certain items of equipment, always proponing out there for us, always trying as hard as he could, as best as he could, to make sure that the public knew that, our law enforcement here in Honolulu and in Hawaii in general is a very important thing and very special thing. So tireless efforts on his part. It was very, very sad to hear about his loss yesterday. And I just wanted to say, thank you, Chief Donahue, for everything that you did while you were here with us. You will not be forgotten. Your legacy will be remembered.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you indeed. Brother Maui Nick, we have just a couple of moments remaining. Want to thank you for being a part of the program today. We're going to tell Mark that he can have an extended vacation till 2026. But final thoughts from you today.
And just happy to be here and to have this platform to share a little bit about Maui. A lot of times we're forgotten over there, so it's good to remind people that we're still there. And thank you, and thanks for the support to everybody who supports us out there. It's definitely a thankless job, but it's a wonderful career. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being here, without a doubt. And Brother Steve, 20 seconds.
Chief Donahue, what an amazing man. This man's life made a difference. What an impactful individual. Deep condolences to his family and friends. This is a man whose legacy will be remembered. His life had purpose. He was so unselfish. He was a police leader. He gave back to the community. This man's life, he created a legacy. Again, our condolences to his family, and may he rest in peace.
Brothers Nick, thank you so very much, gentlemen. Brother Steve, as always. And Matt, kudos to Brother Mark, Brother Bobby, and more. Thank you for joining us